my channel, or if you are new around here, welcome to my channel. My name is Harriet and it is really nice to meet you. Now, at the beginning of the year I said to myself that I wanted to try and read more books because I don't know why the last couple of years I've neglected reading, and I love reading. It's something that I've always loved, and I was really sad that I wasn't reading as much as I used to, so I said that I would read more books across 2021, and I wanted to talk about it with you guys on my channel and make a monthly video talking about the books that I've read that previous month. So January started off really strong. We had 6 books that I read in January. Talked about those on my channel, but then February rolled around and I only read 1 book, so that's why you didn't get a book video for the month of February, because I thought it would be really boring if I just talked about 1 book for 1 whole video. So I'm combining February and March, if that's okay with you guys. You'll see why in a second. I only read 1 book in February, but yeah, that's what this video is: February's books and March's books that I read. So let's start with February's book, The Night Circus. So now you understand why it took me so long to read a book in February. Yeah, it's a pretty chunky book. It's like 500 plus pages. And yeah, I know I'm very behind reading this book. I know people were reading it years and years and years ago. I remember watching people talk about it in like 2014 or something like that. So I know I'm late to the game reading it in 2021, but I loved it. I really did. It was so good. It took me a while to get into though, because if you've read it, you'll know that it switches perspectives a lot. It has different people talking in the different chapters, but I guess if that's what you can call them, you know, different characters are introduced all the time. It goes back and forth in timelines. So yeah, it can get very confusing. It did take a while for me to get into this book, but once I did, I loved it. Basically, to sum up the general gist of the book, there are 2 people, Celia and, oh, what's his name? Marco. Celia and Marco. So Celia is who we are introduced to right at the beginning of the book, and basically she is magical, I guess. She has powers. She's, I don't know, able to do illusions, sorcery, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. She's able to do that. She is bound to this guy called Marco to, I don't know, do some sort of magical battle, or for the rest of their lives be in competition with each other, I guess, to one-up each other in this illusion, sorcery, magical arena thing, which is in the Night Circus, in the circus that comes about, which is really a lot of pressure for a young kid to deal with. That's basically what the main part of the story is, but there's lots of other little branches of the story that come about because of this main storyline. So there's other characters that we're introduced to, and other timelines, and it all kind of links together in the end. But yeah, that's why it took me so long to get into it. But I just loved it. I loved the characters, I love the storyline, I love the mystery behind it, I love that it's involved with magic. I love the imagery that it gives me and the visuals that it came about in my mind when I was reading this book. I really think this would translate so well on screen. I know when I finished this book, I googled it to see if it was ever considered to be made into a movie, and I think the rights to it was bought a couple of times, but it fell through multiple times. But no, I do really think this could work really well on screen. I don't know about a film, but I feel like maybe it would work really well as a TV show on a streaming site like Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus, just because, I don't know, I feel like because it has so many people's perspectives, and because it jumps to different timelines all the time, and that kind of thing happens a lot in this book, that I feel like it would work well so that each episode could focus on a specific character or a specific theme that links those people together, or a specific year or whatever, because I feel like that would work better rather than a film where it could get quite confusing. But yeah, I loved this book, and if you haven't read it yet, like me, I would highly recommend it. So let's move on to the books I read in March. So the first one I read, actually I don't have on me because it's my mum's book and it's hidden away in my mum and dad's room somewhere. But yeah, she suggested that I read it because she said that I would probably like it because it's a very modern love story, and it is We Just Clicked. I can't remember the author's name, I'm sorry. But yeah, basically, We Just Clicked is a very modern love story, and I did like it, and she's right, because it does really fit to my generation, the generation of the coming of the digital age. Basically, the book has 2 people, I forget their names because I don't have it to hand, I'm sorry, but basically they want to become super mega Instagram famous, want to have lots of sponsorships, brand deals, all of those things, etc. And they will do anything and manipulate anything and forge and fake anything to make that look like their reality to be able to gain followers. And they do so when they meet each other by pretending they're in a relationship. So yeah, it's about a fake Instagram relationship that people buy into and gets them lots of following and sponsorship deals and brand deals and all of these things, because they want to make it big time and they want that to be their lives rather than the mediocre lives that they're living working in an office. Yeah, it's basically about the downfalls that come from that and the pressure that people face in a day-to-day sort of basis based on social media, and you know how that can really affect you and your life and things that are going on in your real life and not the life that you portray on social media. Like for instance, there might be, I don't want to spoil it, another romance involved that one of the two can't participate in fully, or at least be public about, because it will ruin their chances of becoming famous through Instagram. So yeah, that's basically what that book was about. I did enjoy it. I did think it was a really cool way of telling a story, because yeah, it's very, very modern, very relatable. It appeals to a lot of people in this day and age. The only thing that I found kind of annoying about it was, I thought when I was reading it that it was the author's first book, which when I'm about to tell you why it kind of bugged me, it kind of excused that for me. But when I found it wasn't, I was a bit like, oh well, that's a bit unprofessional. Basically, I found that it could have had one last edit, or at least one last read through by the author and the editor before it got published, because I found a lot of spelling mistakes, a lot of grammatical errors, and sort of weird inconsistencies in the storyline when I was reading it that kind of was like, oh well, that's a bit distracting and a bit annoying that that was slipped through the net when they were doing the editing process. So that's the only downfall I can say about this book, is the fact that there were some little errors, which, you know, if you're not very pedantic and picky about those things like me and a bit of a grammar nerd and things like that, then you probably won't notice it. But me and my mum are both like that and we both noticed it. Yeah, that's the only thing I can say. But other than that, it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it and I liked the concept for it. So that was We Just Clicked. Would recommend that one. So the next book I read in March was The Cousins. So this is a book by Karen M. McManus. I've read some of her books before. There's like a two-part book series that she's written called One of Us is Lying and One of Us is Next. She does most of her books in the perspective of multiple people, so different people tell different chapters, and that's how the storyline runs. And that's the same with The Cousins, and The Cousins is about cousins. It's about a family history that's very wealthy. It's on an island that the cousins' parents grew up on, and the parents got disinherited by their mother back in like the 90s, and the cousins don't know their grandmother and any of this history, because it's very secretive and there's a lot of things that they don't know about, and reasons why they got disinherited isn't really known to the parents of these cousins. So then one day they get this mysterious letter from their grandma saying, come and work on the island for the summer. And they thought it was really weird, but the parents were all really excited about it, because they were like, oh, maybe this is our chance to rekindle our relationship with our mum. So these cousins, they go to the island and they go to meet the grandmother, and yeah, there is a lot of plot twists, a lot of things that like you'll continue reading and be like, surely nothing else can happen reading this book, but then it does, and it's wild, it's crazy, but it's really interesting. I love the way that she writes her books. I love the element of mystery there is, and the amount of plot twists that she does add to her books. Sometimes I found it a little bit annoying with the multiple person perspective, because something would be revealed maybe in one person's chapter and then you wouldn't hear about it properly and you wouldn't see how they resolved it unless it was through the next person's chapter and they're discussing it with them, or it's already been dealt with. Lots and lots of plot twists and turns and family secrets are revealed in this book. It's really good. I would highly recommend this book and this author, because her stories are just so good. They really do capture your attention, keeps you guessing throughout the whole book. Yeah, I would say there's probably like 3 or 4 plot twists and different identities and things revealed, maybe even 5 throughout this book, and honestly it kept me up at night reading this book because it was just that good. And the final book that I read in March, which I managed to squeeze in, was, oh, you can't really see that, Under Rose Tinted Skies. So this is a book about a girl called Nora, and she has agoraphobia and OCD, and because of that she doesn't leave her house. So basically it's about how she deals with everyday life, being stuck in her house and having to deal with the anxieties that she constantly goes through every day, and things that she's always thinking about because of her OCD, and how it's not just a mental illness, it's also can have a lot of physical side effects because she does go through it a lot. She has a lot of anxiety attacks, she passes out a lot, and because of that a lot of things are strained in her life. You know, she doesn't have a world outside of her house. Her only relationship that she has really is with her mum. People don't really understand her, so they sort of slowly started becoming less and less of an involvement in her life. But then one day she meets this guy who is her neighbour, who's just moved in, and she starts to become really curious about him, and things start to unravel where she wants to start seeing how things go with that, and she starts to question a lot of things that she's always thought about, and is like, well, okay, now everything that I've ever known is starting to unravel because of this one guy. So yeah, it's a bit of a love story, but obviously it is mostly centered around mental illness, which I thought was really interesting. I did a degree in psychology, so I'm really interested in that kind of thing. I've read books about OCD before, but not agoraphobia. So yeah, it was a really interesting story. I really found that it was a good angle to talk about that sort of side of mental illness. The only thing I would say is it took a while to get into it, into the story, and then right at the end, literally, I thought it was the last chapter. I like to skip ahead, not to read what's happening, but to see how many chapters I have left in the book. So I thought I was on the last chapter when this big huge plot story twist happened, and I was like, oh my god. But then it wasn't the end, but it was pretty much the end of the book, and I was like, how is this going to get resolved if there's like one chapter left? So I think that was a bit annoying. It could have put that in a little bit closer to like the middle of the book maybe, or like not so at the end of the book. But other than that, yeah, it's a really good book. I really loved it. Definitely opens your eyes up to mental illness if that's not something you have come across properly before. The publishing company actually has a really amazing note at the beginning, which I wasn't expecting to read, and then I did. I'll read it to you. It's really, really beautiful. The publisher is Chicken House, and it says, a message from Chicken House: just pull yourself together. I mean, it's all in your head. Why can't you just get over yourself? We've all heard this kind of prejudice. Everyone has been affected by mental illness. We've all either suffered ourselves or known someone in torment, and yet preconceptions are so hard to overcome. This brilliant and important novel by Louise Gornall is about being trapped in your head, in your house, and in yourself. It's about how there is always hope and always love. You must read it. It's for all of us. I just thought that was so beautiful, because we are so trapped in preconceptions and are scared of mental illness because it's not something that you can see, and because you can't see it, it can't be real, right? But that's not the case for some people, especially like people like Nora in this book, because it is their everyday reality and they can't escape it. And even though, yes, you can't see what's going on in their brain to make them feel like they do, it's just the overwhelming effects of the things that are happening in their life because of it are just really hard-hitting, and yeah, important to realize that that is people's reality. So I thought that message at the start was really beautiful, and it really makes you think. And yeah, this book was obviously mostly about her and her illnesses, but how she slowly learns to not let that affect her life as much, and not let it be the main driving force of everything that she is. And she slowly starts to accept things and open up a little bit more to possibilities that do scare her, and I think that's important too, to try and do that in your life. That is all I have to talk about today. That is the books that I read over the March and February periods. So if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because that would mean a lot if you did, and I will see you next time in another video. Goodbye.